There's a guy in your office who leaves at 5 every single day, doesn't check Slack after dinner, doesn't volunteer for the weekend strategy session, doesn't talk about his side hustle or his stock picks or his morning routine. He drives a 12-year-old Subaru, wears the same rotation of 6 shirts, brings lunch in a container that looks like it survived the 90s. Everyone talks about him the way people talk about someone who's given up. He's coasting. He's not ambitious. He peaked. You feel a little sorry for him, honestly, and a little superior, because you're the one staying late. You're the one who got the promotion. You're the one with the financial plan, the brokerage account, the spreadsheet that tracks your net worth monthly. You're doing everything right. And somehow he retired at 51. No inheritance, no startup lottery, no crypto windfall. You checked. You asked around after he left. He just stopped showing up one Tuesday, and the only person who wasn't surprised was his wife. Everyone else was doing that thing where they pretend to be happy for someone while quietly doing math in their head, trying to figure out how. Because it doesn't make sense. You make more than he did. You've always made more than he did. You have the better title, the better car, the better everything that's supposed to matter. And he's the one who's free. That feeling you're having right now, that confusion mixed with something you don't want to name, hold on to it. Because by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly what he knew that you don't. And it's going to ruin the way you think about your own money, possibly forever. Let's start with the thing everyone gets wrong, the assumption so deep in your thinking that you've never even examined it. You believe, because the entire world has told you to believe, that earning more money makes you more free, that a higher salary expands your options, that the path to independence runs directly through income. More money, more choices. More choices, more freedom. It sounds so obvious it feels stupid to even question it, but watch what actually happens when someone gets a raise. Not what they say happens, what actually happens. They move. Not because they need to, because they feel like they should. The apartment that was fine last year suddenly feels like it's holding them back. The neighborhood doesn't match the new number on the pay stub, so they upgrade. The rent goes up $400 a month, but it's fine because they're making more now. Then the car, then the restaurants, then the wardrobe, because you can't show up to the new building in the old clothes. Then the pressure to maintain, the pressure to signal, the pressure to keep performing at the level that justifies the lifestyle that supposedly reflects the salary that was supposed to make everything easier. Here's what nobody says out loud. Most people who earn 6 figures are more trapped than they were at 50,000. Not because they're stupid, because each raise came with a new floor, a new minimum standard of living that feels impossible to drop below without it meaning something terrible about who they are. And that right there, that invisible floor, that's the thing the guy with the Subaru figured out how to delete. Think about a building, a tall one, glass and steel, the kind you see in every financial district in every city. Every floor is a lifestyle. Ground floor is basic survival. 10th floor is comfortable. 20th floor is successful by anyone's definition. 30th floor is where people start using words like affluent. Most ambitious people spend their entire careers trying to get to a higher floor. They climb and climb. Better job, better title, more money, higher floor. And from up there, the view is genuinely incredible. You can see everything. You feel important. People below you look small. But here's what nobody mentions about tall buildings. The higher you go, the more it costs to stay there. The rent on the 30th floor isn't just more expensive than the 10th. It's a fundamentally different kind of expense. It's not optional. You can't just decide to stop paying it. You can't take the stairs back down without everyone noticing, without it meaning something, without it feeling like failure. The guy with the Subaru was never on the 30th floor. That's what everyone misunderstood about him. They thought he couldn't get there. The truth is, he chose a different building entirely. A short one, ordinary looking, nothing impressive from the outside. But his building had something the glass tower didn't: an exit on every floor. He could leave any time he wanted, and eventually, he did. What does it actually mean to have an exit on every floor? Think about the last time you were in a meeting where someone said something you knew was wrong. Not a small thing, a real thing. A strategic mistake, a bad investment, a direction that was going to cost the company months. You knew it, you felt it, and you sat there and said nothing. Or you said something soft, something diplomatic, something that wouldn't threaten your position. Why? Not because you're weak. Because you've built a life that requires this job. The mortgage, the car payment, the private school deposit you just made, the lifestyle that your spouse has organized around your current income. You can't afford to be the person who says the uncomfortable thing and gets labeled difficult. You can't afford to get fired. You can't afford a 3-month gap in income while you find something better. So you stay quiet, and the meeting moves on, and the bad decision gets made. Now, imagine the same meeting, same bad idea, but you have 18 months of expenses in cash, no debt, no car payment, a lifestyle that costs 40% of what you earn. Suddenly, the math is different. Not the career math, the fear math. You can say the thing. You can be direct. You can risk being wrong or being unpopular, because the worst case scenario isn't catastrophe. It's inconvenience. You could get fired tomorrow, and your life wouldn't change for a year and a half. That's not courage. That's arithmetic. But it looks like courage from the outside. And here's the part that should make you uncomfortable. The people around you who seem calm. The ones who negotiate without desperation. The ones who walk away from bad deals. The ones who somehow always seem to have leverage. Most of them aren't smarter than you. They're just cheaper to maintain. Let's talk about what that actually looks like in practice. Because this is where the shift happens. And it happens slowly enough that most people never notice it in themselves, but immediately recognize it in someone else. There's a moment, and it's not dramatic. It's quiet, almost boring. It's the moment you realize that the things you thought you needed, you actually chose, and that you could choose differently. It usually starts with one expense, something you've been paying for so long, it feels like a law of physics. Maybe it's the car. You've always had a car payment because everyone has a car payment. $400 a month, $500, $600. You've never not had one since you were 23. And one day, you look at it and something clicks. This isn't transportation. This is a subscription to looking like I'm doing well. And the subscription costs more than just the payment. Insurance on a newer car, premium gas, the anxiety when someone dings your door in a parking lot, the way you park far away at the grocery store to protect the finish. All of it. Time, money, mental energy. For what? To make strangers in traffic think you have a good job? The guy with the Subaru paid it off 9 years ago and never bought another one. Drove it until the paint faded. And every month for 9 years, the money that would have gone to a car payment went somewhere else. Not somewhere exciting, somewhere boring. Boring enough that nobody ever asked about it. Boring enough that it compounded in silence for almost a decade. Here's what happens when you run the numbers. Not the aspirational numbers, the actual ones. Take two people. Both earn $95,000 a year. Same city, same tax bracket. Person 1 spends $82,000. Normal life. Nice apartment, decent car, eats out a few times a week, takes a vacation, has subscriptions, buys new clothes when the seasons change. Saves about $800 a month after everything. Not bad, not nothing, just slow. Person 2 spends $48,000. Same city, different choices. Older car, smaller apartment, but in a fine neighborhood. Cooks most meals, goes out but not by default. Doesn't deprive themselves, just doesn't spend unconsciously. Saves about $3,000 a month, sometimes more. After 10 years, person 1 has roughly $130,000 saved, maybe $160,000 with market returns. They feel like they're making progress, slowly. Person 2 has $390,000, maybe $450,000 with returns. And here's where it gets interesting. Person 2 isn't just ahead in dollars. They're ahead in something far more valuable. They're ahead in time. Because at $450,000 with a monthly spend of $4,000, they have over 9 years of living expenses saved. If they stopped working tomorrow, nothing about their daily life would change for almost a decade. Person 1 has about 19 months. Person 2 has something that person 1 cannot buy at any salary, the ability to stop. And that changes everything. Not eventually, immediately. Because the moment you have enough saved that work becomes optional, you start working differently. You stop optimizing for survival and start optimizing for quality. You take the project because it's interesting, not because you need the invoice. You leave the meeting that's wasting your time. You say no to the client who treats you badly. You sleep better because the background hum of financial anxiety, the one you've had so long you think it's just what being an adult feels like, goes quiet for the first time in your life. The people who retire early don't look the way you think they look. They're not the ones with the highest salaries. They're the ones with the widest gap between what they earn and what they need. And that gap isn't about deprivation. It's about something else entirely. Something most people never develop because the culture is designed to prevent it. It's the ability to feel rich without evidence. That sounds almost stupid, but sit with it for a second. Most people need external proof that they're doing well. The car, the apartment, the restaurant, the vacation photo. Remove those things and they feel like they're failing, even if their bank account says otherwise. They cannot feel wealthy unless the world can see it. Their sense of financial security is entirely dependent on performance. The guy with the Subaru didn't need the performance. And that's not because he was enlightened or disciplined or some monk. He just, somewhere along the way, disconnected his identity from his expenditure. What he spent stopped being a scoreboard. And once that happened, the math got absurdly simple. Because when you don't need to perform wealth, the cost of your life drops dramatically. And when the cost of your life drops, the amount of time you need to work drops with it. Not by a little, by decades. This is where most people make the mistake. And I want to be very precise about this, because it's the exact error that keeps intelligent, high-earning people working until they're 67, while the guy in the Subaru has been free for 16 years. The mistake isn't spending money. The mistake is raising your floor. Every time you upgrade your lifestyle, you're not just spending more this month. You're committing to spending more every month for the rest of your life. The nicer apartment isn't a one-time cost. It's a permanent increase in your minimum operating expense. The better car isn't a purchase. It's a new baseline. And baselines almost never go back down. Because lowering your lifestyle feels like loss. And humans will do almost anything to avoid loss. They'll work jobs they hate, stay in cities that drain them, maintain relationships that exist only to preserve a standard of living, all to avoid the feeling of going backward. So they stay on the 30th floor, paying 30th floor rent, working 30th floor hours, absorbing 30th floor stress. Looking down at the guy with the Subaru who left the building entirely and thinking he's the one who failed. There's a specific kind of wealth that has nothing to do with the number in your account. It's the number of bad options you can survive without fear. Read that again because it reframes everything. If you get laid off tomorrow, how many months can you live without changing anything? If your industry collapses, how long before the pressure becomes panic? If someone offers you a deal that feels wrong, can you walk away without doing math in your head? If the answer is no, then your salary isn't buying you freedom. It's buying you the appearance of freedom. And those are very different things. The guy with the Subaru could survive any bad option, not because he had millions, because he needed almost nothing. His floor was so low that almost any income covered it. And when your floor is low, everything above it is surplus. Every dollar is a choice, not a commitment. Every month of work is voluntary. That's the position most people never reach, no matter how much they earn, because they keep raising the floor. Here's where you need to be careful, because if you've been listening to this and something is starting to shift inside you, if you're beginning to see your own spending differently, your own lifestyle, your own quiet dependence on things you told yourself were necessities, then you're at the most dangerous point. The mistake people make right here, at the moment of clarity, is to go too far. They slash everything, cancel every subscription, sell the car, move to a cheaper apartment, tell their friends they're on a financial transformation journey. They turn frugality into an identity, which is just the same trap in reverse. Now you're performing poverty instead of performing wealth. And performance of any kind is expensive, not in dollars, in sustainability. The people who actually make this work don't make dramatic moves. They make invisible ones. They keep the apartment but stop upgrading. They keep the car but stop replacing it. They keep eating out but stop doing it by default. They don't announce anything. They don't post about it. They don't build a spreadsheet they show people at parties. They just quietly, month by month, widen the gap between what they earn and what they need. And they let the math do the rest in silence. The other mistake, the one that's even more dangerous, is waiting. Telling yourself you'll start once you make more, once you get the raise, once the bonus hits, once the kids are older, once things calm down. Things never calm down, and the math doesn't wait. Every year you delay, the finish line moves further away. Not by a year, by more than a year. Because the money you would have invested isn't just sitting there, it's compounding. And compound interest punishes procrastination more than almost any other force in finance. The gap between starting now and starting in 5 years isn't 5 years of savings. It's 5 years of savings plus everything those savings would have earned for the next 20 or 30 years. The person who invests $500 a month starting at 30 ends up with roughly half of what the person who started at 25 accumulates. Same monthly amount, same fund, same returns, half the result. Because the early money does the heaviest lifting, and you can't get those years back. Remember the guy with the Subaru? The one everyone thought was coasting? The one who left at 5 every day and never talked about money and drove a car that looked like giving up? He's out there right now. It's a Wednesday afternoon. He's probably reading, or walking somewhere slowly, or sitting in a chair doing absolutely nothing. And that nothing, that ordinary, unimpressive, completely invisible nothing, is the most expensive thing in the world. Because the ability to do nothing, to have no obligation, no payment, no performance, no floor to maintain, that requires something most people never build. Not because they can't, because they were never taught that it mattered. They were taught that more is better, that upgrades are progress, that ambition means visible accumulation. And so they accumulated, visibly, impressively, relentlessly, until they were so successful they couldn't afford to stop. He could afford to stop, so he did. And that quiet, ordinary freedom, that's the thing the Subaru was carrying the whole time. There's a guy in your office who leaves at 5 every single day, doesn't check Slack after dinner, doesn't volunteer for the weekend strategy